All right. So I have been waiting all year to bring this to you guys. And let me make sure I'm in the right spot here. Cool. So I have been getting into sculpting lately. I think it's got a lot of implications for our industry. I think that it's really going to affect pretty much everything that we do in a really major way. I have avoided getting into it forever because I didn't really see the point. We're doing a 2D illustration. What's the point of making something in 3D just to bring it back into 2D? Well, as I found out, it's very easy to do that with post-processing such as matte caps and different effects that will allow you to produce a line drawing from a sculpture, number one. And number two, it allows you to work very fastly by volume. You don't have to worry about perspective. You don't have to worry about foreshortening. You can go up and down in resolution, and you can light your object from any direction and then copy your object into any multiple number of scenes that you may have. So this is what we have been using is Nomad. Yeah, that's actually it. I'm done with this. And Nomad is very easy, and a lot of my videos are on Nomad, and you can get in there and get right to town. And there's a lot of power here. However, it's not ZBrush, and there's a ton of power in ZBrush. Now, the problem that most people have in ZBrush is going to be the user interface, and there's just so many menus everywhere, it's a lot to keep track of. I have another series of videos coming out that is going to predate this ZBrush series, where in the ZBrush series, I'm going to be sculpting actual objects, things that can help us later, things that it might help you to know how to sculpt. In the pre-brush or pre-ZBrush, or I'm not sure what I'll call it yet. I think I'm starting this video at 001, and then that one I will start at 0.001 or something like that, and it's going to handle what the different types of sculpting are, what the different resolutions are, what all the different menus do, what all the different tools are. And I highly recommend that so that you can get in and learn the tools and learn how to best use these things in your workflow, right? How your brain works. Today I'm going to just use the regular user interface, and in some of my videos that's what I'll be doing, is using the regular user interface. This is helpful because when you're watching multiple videos, having somebody that has or being able to watch like the standard user interface until you understand the tools is much easier, especially because I'll be calling out the tools as I use them. Today I won't be using very many tools, mostly just the move tool. And I will talk about a couple of different interface things, but nothing super important. And let's see if I can get myself. Let us see here. Done. So let me see if I can set up my subscription over here. Manage my subscription. So let me. Cool. All right. So welcome to ZBrush for iPad. So we're going to do a new sculpt. And what we're going to do right here, so in this we have a sphere, which is how we're normally going to sculpt. You have a cube, which you can sculpt, you can start with, and in some instances, sometimes you have something hard surface. I would actually use a different program for hard surface and stick to ZBrush for organic surfaces. There's a couple different planes of the head for male and female, a little bit different proportions. An anime head, a demo female head, demo male, the same thing with the bodies, one with hair, one without hair, a dog. There's a ZBrush statue. There might even be a ZZoo. I'm not sure. And there's this Ryan Kingsley anatomy. Before you go out and buy a skeleton, because you can get one for $5-10. You can probably even find a free one. This model has all the muscle structures and all of the bones. So all you have to do is, like, if you open this and you just start deleting the muscles, or you merge all the muscles together and then delete them, then you just have a skeleton left over. So today what we're going to do, this is one of my favorite exercises in here. And I think that everybody should do it because it's going to be vital later, and we're going to be able to bring other elements in here later on. Is this guy right here, right? Skull grid ref. And what that means is that we have a view of the right side of the skull put on the left panel, right? So we're viewing it from the side. We have a view of the front of the skull, and we have a view of the top of the skull, and we have a sphere in there to make it all happen. So I'm going to just open that. And I've done this project before, but I did a couple things different, and it's possible to get the resolution so high that when you try to open it in ZBrush, it just crashes. So the first thing I'm going to do here is, this is our subtools, and our subtools is, like, you can think of them as the individual lumps of clay that we want to stay separate so that we can move them around in and out of each other, right? And so what we're going to do here is we're just going to long press this. We're going to duplicate it a couple of times. So now I have 4 of them. So now we're going to long press, and we're going to rename this. No. Let's see. Let's do this. The cranium. Okay. And we're going to name this the top teeth. But what we're going to do with the teeth is we are going to duplicate and mirror quite a bit. So this is going to be named 1, 2, 3, 4 mirror whatever, and then it'll all get smashed together again. So this, having the proper name to everything, will allow us to keep track better. Bottom teeth. And let's get rid of this guy. Sorry about my voice today. Okay. And then this we're going to call the weird. Now they want to. Dun, dun, dun. I'm most worried about putting the camera out of perspective. Rename. And we're just going to call this one jaw. If I knew how to spell that. It's a tiny keyboard. Okay, so we've got that handled, and we're going to start with the cranium because that's the most fun. We can turn these off if it's going to get in our way, and we just won't worry about those for right now. Okay, so I'm going to close that menu. Now this menu, this thing that looks like a layer palette, has your subtools. These are considered, like I said, the extra lumps of clay. You can consider them layers. They also have layers that can go on this, and these can go into groups, but we will get into that later. And you also have visibility groups, right? So you can say, hey, all these different teeth, I want to look at them all at one time. I don't want to go through and turn this on and off every time. So you set these groups. Next thing I'm going to do is come in here on the top. These are different palettes that you can open. And I'm going to come in here to camera. And I'm going to lock this in. Right now, you can say, what do you want it at? 85 degrees? Do you want it at 24 degrees? Your camera lens. 18. I've been shooting with 35 a lot. I've also been shooting with 85 a lot, and those are going to look a bit different, right? They're going to be less distorted on an 85. There's less distortion. So I'm going to lock this in. And what that means, so if I don't lock this in, then I can move this however I want, and I can change the zoom level, the zoom factor, and then that will also change how this looks when you're trying to warp it into shape, right? So you kind of want to pick something where it's filled appropriately into the screen, and then you go into here, into this camera palette that you have, and you lock that. And then what that does is it makes it so that you can spin this guy, but your finger controls of spinning this around are neutered, right? So now we're going to take this. This is probably going to be our main tool. This is the move tool. And if you're using a keyboard, you can use the shortcut BMV. B will open your brush menu. M is for move, and V is, I don't know, the third letter designation. And then the space bar will give you these, which is your brush size, your whether or not you're adding or removing material. And then this is your focal ring, right? So inside the brush is that ring on the inside, and that's basically the hardness or softness of the brush, right? So what I'm going to do here, we're going to mostly stick to this tool, which is the move tool, and this tool, which is the gizmo. Now, in ZBrush, the gizmo has a lot of power. Let's see, why is it not? Oh, it is picking up. And you can see right here that you can do a whole bunch of stuff. You can make all kinds of different shapes, and then there's all these things. And I'm gonna have a whole day that I spend just talking about the this menu. And as a matter of fact, yeah, I'm not gonna do it now because I'm into this, but I will get there. So let's say we're gonna move this kind of to the center, right? And then we also want to use this block to make it wider. So now we got the whole top of the head pretty much like laid in 2 moves, right? And then we can make it taller if we want to come down here a bit. I wouldn't even do that because the arc is so different, right? So up here, once we place it, we can start using the move tool to just kind of pull it into place in the areas where it needs it. Same is true down here. Same is true back here, right? And so for right now, that's all we're really worried about, is we're just trying to get all of this stuff into place. And like I was saying earlier, I kind of messed up before when I did it all with one piece of clay, and that's why I made 4 spheres, because that way we'll use this sphere to focus on the jaw, and then we'll focus on or to focus on the cranium, and then we will use those other spheres to focus on each row of teeth and the lower jaw. So here we're just gonna kind of start pushing this out and pulling and pushing and pulling, and then we change the size of the brush to handle different issues, right? Boom. Boom, 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 boom. Cool, right? And then so we have that like pretty much in place pretty quickly. Now it's going to be off right here, but that's okay because we're just going to Blow that brush back up. Bring these things to where they're supposed to be. It looks like that background is slightly off center, which is great. That's probably some kind of test or something, right? See if you're how good your attention to detail is. So that's fine. You just pick one side and you say, cool, this side's going to be mirrored, and as long as that side's mirrored, I'm not going to worry about the other side. Right? This is also a great time to do some anatomy practice, learn what some of these bones are. I'm not gonna, but you could if you're into that sort of thing. I'm very much into the nerdy side of art, and then I very much never like take credit for it and treat everything like, oh, this is easy and everybody should know, because I learn from other people that already know and they already know before me. So I tend to kind of overlook some of the effort sometimes. And then I think also part of that is just the way my life goes. If I was waiting for people to validate that stuff all the time, it would pretty much not happen very often. And I think that as artists, we kind of need to like. I guess I should say that one thing that I appreciate in an artist is when they have a need to produce something regardless of whether anybody's looking, right? It's one of the reasons I really like graffiti. It's one of the reasons I really like, there's a lot of styles of art that I really like, but, you can tell when somebody just had to make a thing and didn't care who was looking. And, sometimes I care very much who's looking. And of course, like I'm trying to play for a crowd and I'm very, pragmatic about my art, right? Even this whole ZBrush series is kind of like, hey, tattoo artists, this is how you can be more economical with your movements so that, you don't burn yourself out, or you try a new thing, or you get into something new, or like, hey, maybe tattooing is how you like copy pictures, but then you get into going and doing photography, right? And or maybe you're in the winter and you don't want to do photography, but painting is taking up too much space. Well, this is a great way for us to explore image creation, right? So we can create images in many different ways, and this is a great way to explore that, I think. Let's see, blow this up, put this inside. We're pretty close here on the side, right? Pretty close on the front. Now, this button right here on your keyboard, Shift will do it. This is so that you can smooth things out. So what we can do here is we can turn off this board, and then we can say, hey, does that look like what I think it should look like, or what I want it to look like? And it's cool if it doesn't, because what you're trying to do is you're warping all of these polygons into shape where they should be, right? Or these are all going to be squares currently in this. But based on doing it this way, we can definitely start to add clay. So this is going to be like clay buildup, clay buildup, dam standard. Dam standard is going to be like how you drag a line and something. So we still want to stick to the move brush here, but let's see about subdividing it. So every time we subdivide, we don't want that, we don't want that. If you see all these little squares in here, right? Every time we subdivide, we're going to cut each of those squares into four. It's going to get smoother and smoother every time. But it's going to be harder to deal with, and there's going to be many more polygons. So whatever, if you have a model with 10,000 polygons and you subdivide it, you now have a model with 40,000. If you subdivide that, you now have a model with 160,000, right? So it gets bigger very fast. So you don't necessarily want to make it smooth really quick. You actually kind of want to Let's see if I can go back here. Yeah, so we only want 2 levels of subdivision while we're still using the move tool. And we're going to put this back on, right? And what we're doing here is making sure that we're able to push these things back down into where we think that they go, but we have more polygons to stretch out so it doesn't get as distorted in there. Now, this area is getting a little bit kind of weird, so let's go ahead and make that this way. Pull this guy out, and then let's see. Yeah, so this guy. So what I'll do now is like I have this clay buildup, and I'm gonna paint it small right here so that I know where this shape is when I get into the sculpting, right? And then we know there's a shape here. And then we can also click this and go to Z sub as opposed to Z add. And that's going to help us take clay away, take clay out, right? So now we're going to start digging in. And these textures are not in here, right? The textures that are, the image that you're looking at really is this skull. And then you can slightly see where anywhere where I'm not like exactly lined up with it. But because I'm fairly lined up with it, it looks all right. Um, Z sub, Z add, boom. Trying to do Z move. Okay, so it's working. And then let's see. Then we go back here. This has to come out. So when you push the eyes in, right, all these polygons are connected. So you start pushing one thing and it pulls another. And that's why you have to eventually go in and change your resolution. But you can affect your model better the less resolution that it has, right? The less resolution it has, the more properly it behaves. You don't really want to get your texture on there until the end, once you have the rest of your model kind of set and ready to go in there. So just going to play with this for a few. I think probably in the video I'll end up if you guys are lucky, maybe I'll fast forward through some of this, because it does get to be kind of boring, a little bit tedious. But then you can come in here and go back and forth with your clay buildup, your standard. You can then divide it again, make it a little bit smoother. I personally I like the standard brush, but not as much as the clay buildup brushes. And then in this, I'm gonna still want to like Boolean, but we'll deal with that in a minute. And then go back and forth from add to sub. If you have a keyboard or a peripheral device, you can have a hotkey for that, where you just kind of like push the key and it does that. It like switches back and forth, which is very convenient. And then we're gonna smooth all this out, turn the brush up, smooth, no, brush up. And kind of get in here and smooth this out. And we want it chunky, but we don't want it like so chunky, right? Same here. And now we can go ahead and use this or pinch. Where's layer? Pinch. Damn standard will do. So damn standard is going to give us like a divot. We can also flip it over to make it act as like a ridge, right? So let's see. We like the power of it. We want to turn it down in size and we want to flip it over. Now, in this instance, this brush, let's see. Yeah, okay. So we're adding material. Boom. And then we kind of just follow this. This will give us like a little bit natural look because it's kind of like messy and we're still pretty low resolution, right? We have all this faceting going on. Kind of smooth it out a little bit, but we're going to use that as a reference point in a second here when we want to go the other way and dig in, right? And the fact that those two are together is going to give us a nice crisp like edge, which is going to look great when we zoom in on it. And I'm sorry I'm not talking into the microphone as much. Hopefully I'm close enough that it won't matter at the end of the day. And then we're going to just hold this down and kind of smooth that out a bit to just like save it for a minute, right? And then what about this area here? This area looks whack, right? So we need this. We're going to start building this up and this the way we know it should be. So this is going to be thicker kind of towards the mouth. And then this, there should be a ridge. Let's go to the front and turn this on. So now our ridge here, and we want to be doing clay buildup. Which one was it? Clay buildup? Yeah. There's one called clay tubes. And I really like that. It's very similar. It's not very different at all, but I like that one. And then we're just going to come here and we're really marking in like what this model already has, right? And I'm actually kind of messing that up. I shouldn't have done that. And I should smooth out as much of this as possible. Because I'm doing some of the modeling, like when I look at the model, I'm looking at this side, but this side is truer to the, well, this side is truer to the model, but let's go ahead and change that. So let's go ahead and move this all slightly out. And so on this side of the model, we're going to be off, but on this side of the model that we're going to be on, and that's going to change kind of what I'm doing here. Because when we're in this view, we're only working on this side of the model. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense to match this side of the model and then try to match this side of the model at all, I don't think. So what we're going to do here is same thing. We're just going to come back to our standard. We're going to turn that. We're going to crank that. We're going to turn the brush down so it's kind of fine. And we are going to put that stuff in here, and then look straight. And now we can smooth that into place, smooth this into place. And all we're going to do is keep going back and forth. This one will do the same thing. In terms of inverting the brush itself, right? So you can come down here, turn this way down, and say, cool, we want this to be a flat area. and we want this to be turned in, and then this we're going to smooth out and smooth out. And so, yeah, you just go back and forth and play with it and add a little bit, subtract a little bit, smooth it out. Same here. You got to make this hollow in here, right? And then there's definitely a thing. What's this? And then you'll say, go back to the move tool. And you'll notice that this stuff is like, it's not always the same just because you have the same image from both sides, right? So it does take some playing. And then at the end of the day, really, you're just trying to make a cool skull. So I'm going to make this one, and then I'm going to bring in some other skull reference that I have. And then by editing and playing around this way, you can have as many skulls as you can deal with. No need to go buy a replica, although I do love that. If you've never used it, I recommend Dapper Cadaver for like skulls and stuff like that. I know you can rent like an elephant skull copy, right? So this place will like grab a specimen from a zoo or something and then wrap it in plaster and then make molds. And you can buy them for photography purposes or for movie purposes, or you can just buy them. So you can rent them or buy them. So let's see. So let's turn this off and see where we're at. So this is in a decent enough spot. I think I can push the eyes back some. Got the move tool going. Cool. So we just push this a little here, push that a little there, pick this up some, turn this guy up. Oh, turn this guy down and this guy up. This just gives you more power, right? So the trick here is like you want, in this stage of the game, you have all the power in the world to move clay. Later on, you're going to want to use that power for your textures and stuff. So you're going to want these things mostly set, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the jaw, turn off the cranium, select the jaw, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to get down into my gizmo. I'm going to move it forward. I'm going to shrink this so that it's like the right size-ish. And then I'm going to remember that this is only my lower jaw here. So it's not the teeth, right? So what we're going to do is just get into this move tool. We got the size set up. We got the strength set up. Why is it not changing anything? All right, so that's fine. Huh, weird. So I do want like 100% strength on this because it'll take forever if I don't. Right? Sometimes you want to be real simple with it, and sometimes you want to be real direct, and that can help with things. Boom, boom. Get all these nice little, like, the tiny little curves that you kind of like, they're going to be hard to get in there later and make very graceful, right? Boom. Smooth this out because there's some kind of weird divot in there. Boom, boom. Bam. Cool. So now we do this guy. And then let's look at him from the front. And we're gonna, this is weird looking. Alright, so I probably should have done the mirror part, this part here, before I did all the detail, but that's okay. We are gonna match this side and not that side. So let's go ahead and do this. And so what we're doing there is bringing all of those back into alignment, right? So here, we're going to want this to like line up this way. It's actually probably more important than that other shape that we get this. It's more important that we get the U shape in there than we get this other side shape, right? Because now here we do that. Let me just say. And then technically what we can do, just so I can show you guys, let's close this window. This is masking, right? So we can just mask off this part of that. And then when we hold it down and click outside of there, it's going to mask the opposite. So that's the masking, and you guessed it. Now we can move the unmasked part, right? So we're going to get a little bit bigger. Turn this guy back on. Grow this right up into where we want it to go. Now, if you click and drag, it will delete the mask. So we've now deleted the mask. We're going to shrink the brush down some. Boom. Same kind of thing, right? Just warp that into space, or place, I mean. Place, space, however you want to look at it. And then kind of just like work this shape until it's exactly where you need it to be, right? Boom. And all you're really doing is just playing with different sizes of that grab tool or move tool, so that you can get everything into place. Okay, so let's get rid of whatever this lip is, and we'll do this down here, this up here. And let's just see. Here we go. Kick this over where it's supposed to be in my head because that's not right. And then you get, you follow the model until you get to a specific point, and then you kind of go from there. And let's see if we can, let's do, no, we don't want that. We want, no, no. So now that we're mostly there, we can kind of like loosen up on that perspective a bit, and then maybe get both of these in here so we can play with them both at the same time. And then so we're going to just keep using that move tool. We want to use that move tool as much as possible because we want to leave the geometry alone, right? We just want to like move it to where we want it to be. We don't want to change the vertex order or anything like that. Now we can do that. We have plenty of tools to do that. We just don't need to do that. So boom, cool. So now we can, let's see. Is it? So this is what happens if you push spacebar normally. Shift will give you a smooth, and then same here. So let's actually move this. We're gonna take this up. We're gonna subdivide it one time. Oh, and delete higher. So this will let you delete lower or higher subdivisions. Right. And then now we can turn on the top teeth. Oh, can't just turn it on, gotta select it. And we're gonna start just kind of shrinking it down. This yellow box in the center will get you scaling. These corner buttons will let you pull it in any direction. These green and blue and red arrows will let you pull it only in the direction of that axis. I would handle all of the flattening and widening and all of that stuff early, we're not going to worry about the bend curve yet. I want to get these all into place first. And so what we're going to have is this is going to be, so this is still twice as big as we need. Yeah, no, we don't want that yet. We do want this kind of. Yeah. And I think we just want to turn off the single. I'll be right down. Okay, so now we have the symmetry turned off. We're going to get this into place. And we do want to shape this tooth some, right? Not a ton, but some. So we're going to open the brush menu. Where are we at? B. Where's the brush menu? Textures, brushes. And we're going to do a trim. And we're just going to do lasso because I like that. Okay, so close this window. We hit these two together. This one and this one together. And we say, let's see. Top tooth. Symmetry's not on. Alright, be that way. Let's see if we can go about it a different way. Let's go to turn this up some. Boom. Right, and then on the top, we don't want that so hard, but we do want it kind of tall because we want to account for the root, right? If you're only trying to draw things or create things that just like slap up against each other, you're not really taking into account the real shape of those items. So let's see. So what we're going to do here is we'll make this a little bit thicker so that it's meatier and a little bit taller, and we're going to rotate it back so that it actually goes up into the cranium. And we know that it's going to be behind this other tooth, so we're going to leave that alone, and we're going to just pull out this part here where we know we want it to have a little bit of character, a little bit of something to it. And if I line it up, it's kind of like that. But I can also give it thickness down here. Right? Boom. No, we don't want that. We want this. Why are you behaving so oddly? We want this guy. We want it up here. Cool. That works. And now, if we hold down this one, we should be able to just make another tooth right off the other tooth. And then so we'll go this way all the way down one side of the mouth, turn the tooth a little bit, put it into place where we want it to go. Shape it up different than the other tooth. Oh. Same thing over here, right? We want this like, we want it in place. And then later we can use these two teeth to boolean out the skulls inside, or the holes inside the skull. I wonder why this looks so off. Cool. So we're sculpting in a different perspective now than we were in. So what I'm going to do is try, whoops. What I'm going to do is try to kind of come back from that just a little bit. Boom, boom, boom. And then what we want to do also is look at different poly groups. These all look like one poly group, but we're going to be able to do something about that later. So I'm not super worried about it right now. It will become an issue. But we'll deal with that when we get to it here in a couple of minutes. So I think this is like this more. And then also like this. A little bit thicker. And then control, bring another tooth out to the side, change its stance, its width, its height, its angle, its thickness, drop it back in there. Right? Oh. Cool. So the teeth are kind of in place. And what we're going to do is turn off this background, and we have this set here. Turn on the background. Yeah, I got an extra tooth. So what we're going to do is just not make that tooth. And we are going to unmask this group. We're going to look at it. You see how those are all green? They're all the same color. It's a very dark interface, but they're all the same color. And so what we want to do here is we want to open this menu, and we're going to come down here. Let's see. Material, texture. One of these things will be called polygroups, and we'll be able to adjust it. See remesher, subdivide. No, we don't want that. Dynamic solo, we could use that. Line, fill, camera. Polygroups would be in tool. Here we go. Polygroups. Auto groups. So now these are all different colors, right? And that means that you can use this tool, which is move topological. And when you use the move tool, it'll move all of these together. So you don't want to do that. But if you use move topological, it'll only move what is in that one polygroup. So this becomes a way of doing masking, because now you can turn this off and you can turn this on and you can zoom out. Let's see. Let's go to the back, go to the camera, vertical 85, cool, lock it in, undo, redo, undo. Do we shrink the whole thing? I'm gonna mess this up somewhere. The field of view on the camera has been changed. Here we go. Okay, cool. So we do want this at 85. We do want, let's see. Still looks a little weird, but I can work with that. So let's go. Now we can work and drag these teeth right where we want them without affecting the other teeth. So the first thing we do is we just kind of get that stuff all under perspective, or all on there in however many different ways. You can see that this one's poking through at the top here. We'll have to adjust that. And then same thing, just make sure we got all these set up here. And by clicking this and any one of the models, you can just pick that model. Or in ZBrush, it's called a subtool. And so we're just going to kind of put some of this stuff back into place. I'm not sure exactly what step I messed that up in, so it's kind of pointless to go back if you don't really know. If you're able to just like fix it, you know. And then this stuff, I like to just kind of like scooch around, because the way that that mesh is acting, it's gonna give you the edges that you need to kind of see where everything is. Cool. And then come back down to the teeth, make sure that's cool, looks all cool. We want this one away for sure. These are kind of weird looking. So let's see. So you got to account, these two models are not exactly right on here. So you can't necessarily make all your decisions assuming that both of these models are right, or that that's ever the case, because you'll get through this and then you'll decide that you were wrong. So now on the top teeth, what we're going to do, we're going to come back over here to Tool. We have the top teeth selected. We're going to go to Geometry. Down in Geometry, we have, let's see, what do we got here? What do we got? Modify Topology, Mirror and Weld across the X-axis. So that's what we're going to do here. Floor grid may not represent the correct mirror axis. Let's say yes. Now what happens if we did that same thing and we said no? Mirror and weld. No. Mirror and weld. Yes. Alright, we're gonna quit putting that up there. So now I think what I'm gonna do is go back, get rid of this guy, switch back over to my normal move tool so that all these teeth are moving at the same time. And then I just want to angle them so that they're a little bit more vertical, right? Same way this way, kind of just like a little bit sticking out more. And then what we can actually do so that we have a little bit more control, I'm going to put these inside the skull more. And it will give us slightly more control if we just take this, duplicate it, and then if we come down here in geometry, this was in modified topology. If we come into deformation under it's its own thing, we can just mirror what we have there, right? So now we unlock we can unlock that view. I'm not going to worry about it yet, but we can see that we have these same teeth in here twice, right? So now maybe we want to move this or adjust it and get everything exactly into place. So what we're going to do actually is just leave the half that we have for a minute. I just wanted to show you kind of where we were going with that. And then we're going to get to the bottom teeth, and eventually what we're going to do is we'll get this model all set up, and we're going to bend the teeth so that they have the natural shape of the jaw in them, and go from there. So I'm going to get this guy on. I'm going to turn this guy back on. We are going to get into our gizmo, and just like before, we're going to bring this to the very front and start making a tooth out of it, right? So the symmetry stuff all set up. So get rid of that. Now, how about that? Mm, 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 mm. Make sure it's square, flat, point it out, down. Well, cool. So we're going to just start with this guy, go to the front, do dynamic solo, make sure it's super tiny. Stood up a little bit more than that. Boom. And then we start using this control button. This is the command or control button. Rotate, rotate. I'm going to actually go dynamic solo for a minute. Turn this off. Turn off the part of the camera that's locking me into place here. Right. And then I can blow this up and look at the top of the tooth. And I can use one of these trim dynamic, flatten, or H polish. H polish is pretty convenient normally. And you can just start kind of flattening out the top of that tooth, right? You don't want it too flat, too sharp, but a little bit. And then when you look at it again, you notice you went too much on one side. Cool. So now we can get in here Time is it? 2:15. That's fine. Did that change my whole thing up? Great. Here we go. So now, a little bit up, a little bit skinnier, a little bit further back, down. Cool. Same thing. Now we just start duplicating. We kind of just change the angle a little bit, and the width a little bit, and the height a little bit. Same thing. This one's taller. We set it back. We move it out. Make it wider. And depending on how you have that focal length set, along with your along with the brush size, that's what's gonna allow you to pull things out in just different random ways, depending on what your workflow is. Oh, I don't want that. So by pushing it down in the middle and pulling up on the sides, you're just going to give it each one a slightly different shape by the one before, even though you kind of like started with a main. Um, It'll kind of allow you to pull the right things into the right places, and give you a very varied, say that a bunch of times fast, and natural look. Which of course is something I'm always going for and always struggling to get and to find. And so what I tend to do is, I'll get these halfway there, most of the way there, and then I'll leave it alone, get the rest of the model up to where I want it to be. Then I'll get the teeth into place for real, for real. Then I'll actually duplicate the teeth, bullion them out of the skull so that the actual holes are really there and we can knock out teeth one at a time if we choose to later. And then also smash everything together and make sure that we have a model that we can use before we get into like texturing it, right? Because we do want to texture it. We want this to be a full-on, awesome, usable skull model, and we will never have to hunt for another skull reference again because we will have this with teeth, without teeth, with some teeth, with a broken jaw. We'll have it any way that we want it. You want to put an eyeball in there, you want to not put an eyeball in there, whatever you like, that'll be done, and it's all going to go off of this. And then if you like this and you want to put it all together into one subtool and pull the mouth out so the teeth are pointier or anything like that, all very, very easy to do. So for right now, I think we're in a good spot to call it day one or something. We're gonna turn off dynamic solo, turn off the background, and this is what we got. And so these teeth obviously are not very well matching what we actually have with our size here. So we're gonna just pull that out some. And just kind of play around with it until we're close to where we want to be, right? Just kind of play with the sizes. And then we're just going to really get this so it's like kind of going together. And we're going to deal with all that stuff later in just a few minutes, okay? So I'm not really worried about it right now. I will get out. I'm going to just go ahead and use the move tool to move these. A, we want them to have a bit more volume. And B, I want them over here. And I also want this a little bit more over there, right? So more out in the front, not quite as much in the back. I want to pull this guy out so it's not like weird butt chin or anything like that. And then there's a spot in here. There's like a little channel, right? And so we're going to straighten that out with the mesh here in just a couple minutes. Relax the mesh where you can. And then same thing, we're going to come back in here, grab these teeth. And just start kind of pulling them where they need to go. Boom. Right. We can take this off so we can see it better now that you guys kind of know what's going on there. And then same thing, right, is we're just going to kind of pull these into place. Boom, 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 boom. And then just slowly and surely we kind of just get all these guys into place. And then we're gonna kind of adjust how they're twisted here a little bit. And then the one last thing that I'm going to do, these are kind of like on the bottom jaw. Actually, the teeth kind of like start to point in the back here. And so we can just kind of like make that a thing so that all this goes together properly. Boom, 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 boom. And now we're going to get out a little bit. We're just going to shrink the brush down and make them kind of like pop out a little bit right after where they go out of the skin, right? Boom, boom, boom. Just so that it gives them a little bit of character. This tooth, I think, can be way smaller. And the same with this one, especially down at the root. All right, this one too. Now we're going to use this, is it this one? H polish. Yeah. And we get in here and we have it very high, high intensity on the brush, small brush. And we just start doing little, oh yeah, see, that'll even more than I want. So we're just gonna work an opposite. Okay. So some of these brushes you can go both ways, add or subtract, and then some of them add or subtract just means like the opposite of what that brush kind of like starts as. So so just giving these teeth like a little bit of faceting here, like a little bit of like flat edges, oddly enough makes them look more like teeth than if they were very flat everywhere. So I'm just kind of doing that, giving them a little bit of character of their own. So each tooth is unique. We can go ahead and mess with the tops of them here in a little bit. And come back to this with my move tool. Turn up the power. Say, what the hell? Okay. So we definitely want to control how deep our teeth are set in here. And then we can also kind of adjust anything that we think is not accurate to where we want it. And then we're also going to take out some clay here because this little section is actually pretty important with how the musculature works, and that this just be a flattened part down here. Boom. Cool. So it doesn't have to be super done yet, right? So this is all we're worried about right now is we're just trying to like get this in, get the nose in. And then we're going to turn up the resolution on this one. Divide it so that we can kind of like get in here a little bit tighter. This we need to build up because this is supposed to be big in the middle, right? And then so we just kind of like Shift, 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 shift. Cool. And that's kind of what we want to do here, is just build back, and then we're going to kind of like build, we know right here this edge has kind of collapsed on us a little bit, so we want to add to it, but as we add to it, we also want to hit shift and kind of like untangle it, because it can get, I'm sure there's a better term for it, but I call it tangled. It can get kind of tangled. So cool. And then now you start doing these little, you can kind of like tell where the muscles were, or where the, let's see, turn up, turn down. Yeah, there we go. Turn the brush down, turn this up. Yeah, here we go. Boom, boom, boom. Cool. And so you want to start putting these things, you're kind of just like stretching them out and putting them back, because again, you're just working with that grid the whole time, right? And you're just telling that grid how to be reshaped. And that's where you're getting all of your volume from. So boom. Awesome. Cool. So now we're going to make this like, now we can worry about exactly how the nose is shaped. Get that little corner out. Kind of bring this shape out. And now what I'm doing is I'm just kind of getting the planes in there a little bit. I don't need them in there at like that, really. But you can get them in and then start to kind of flatten them out or like massage them. This looks whack. Back of the skull should have some volume too. Ah, not that much volume. Come on. Boom. Cool. So now let's that's not super bad. A little bit flatter. I like the shape better. Let's see what we can do down here. So down here, shrink our brush down. And we're going to come to H polish. I'm not sure exactly how these three brushes work differently. One is called H polish. One is called trim dynamic. One is called flatten. And I don't really know the difference, but I know that they don't all work in all cases. So sometimes you got to like try them and see what works. I do find that I like H polish generally the best out of the group. So just FYI, hopefully it never comes up for you. But that's my experience. And I like to give, especially skulls, right? All this like flat area that just looks chunkier. Right? Lots of little like character and detail to go around. And then the brush will normally acclimate to the normals. The normals is like the way that each of these things is facing, each of the faces for the little planes that make up this design. I got the hiccups. So the same thing. We start and we're going to come in here. And now what we can do with the move tool is actually give this shape some shape, right? So now that we've kind of like worked with the skull and we know what we're going for, we can also say, okay, cool, well, I want this shape to taper in this way. And you have so much more control over all of your shapes, over just everything that we're doing. You can just control out to the smallest degree. And in that way, we actually maintain a ton of control, more than we would have if we were drawing this, right? And that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make to people, is that not only is it possible to make designs for tattoos without drawing them, And I'm the first person to talk shit about that. If you can't draw, I will be in the group of people that is has a problem with that. If you tattoo and can't draw, but if you can draw, and especially if you can render, and if you already know kind of like the steps you need to get to a tattoo, then this is a great way to make images, right? And to make everything exactly like you want, have full control all the way through. So, boom, boom. We want these to have some volume. And then I think I'm going to do this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a tool, and it's going to be a sphere. Let's just do a sphere. And we're going to say that this Boolean process, this is going to be an addition. Actually, Boolean process, start of the group. This is going to be a subtraction, right? And then this is going to start a group. This is going to start a group. And this is going to start a group. So what we're going to do with this guy is use the gizmo to shrink it down, make it tall, make it skinny this way, make it skinny this way, make it very skinny this way, turn it, move it, and we just want to make a hole right through this part of our mesh. And so like we know that that is a kind of a skinny bone area. We know that we don't want it touching up here, right? So we don't want it to touch anywhere on this front curve in front of the eye, but we do want it to go almost all the way to the back. Right? So I'm going to actually turn this, spin it, and bring it this way. Now, I don't want it hitting the bottom jaw here, so I'm going to actually shorten it again, even though I just made it that big. And I'm going to move it up so that we're mainly just focused on the area behind that bone, right? And then we're going to come over here to the subtool, the geometry of the subtool, modify topology, mirror and weld, boom. And now we need to turn on live Boolean. So let's go ahead and find this and say display properties. This might take me just a second. Boolean, make Boolean mesh. Well, maybe it'll work. Boolean. I think tool render booleans, live boolean on. Here we go. Show coplanar. I don't care about coplanar, but this is what it's going to have. So let's turn this way and bring it up some. and then just make it a little bit taller. And then, yeah, that should be good. So now we say live boolean, show coplanar issues, blah, 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 boolean, make boolean mesh. No, I don't want to do that. Let's go forward. Now we go back to the tool, to the geometry, to the delete by symmetry, mirror and weld. Now we have the boolean on both sides. And now we say up here in our start thing, make boolean mesh. And that is going to give us a union remesh in progress. Now we can append our new mesh. That's going to give us a cranium 2 down here. We're going to move that to the top, get rid of this cranium and this, and now we have the existing Boolean mesh. Actually, why is this doing this? This is what we want here. Cool. So we're going to be able to say delete, because we have this one now.
Hey, yo. Well, what if I do this? And now all that's really done is it's just given us this hole in the mesh so that we can see through here. And if we come, ooh, we don't have any subdivisions. So what we can do is hit shift and try to like get rid of this edge. And maybe if there's a pinch, then there's got to be an unpinch or something. So now we smooth this out. H polish. Kind of get rid of that crease in there, right? And now real quick, this gives us an opportunity to kind of show you a couple things. So ZBrush is all about the details, but of course we don't want those details in too early because that's going to really slow down our creative process. So what I'm going to do here is now I have this shape that's actually pretty cool. Right? And this kind of needs to come up this way. And it's just like in tattooing or in drawing, right? Where like it's going to be easier to get rid of it's going to be easier to put hard edges in than it will be to put soft to turn hard edges soft, right? We do want mirror on here. I don't know why that got turned off because I will wildly mess us up if we have the symmetry turned off before we're ready for it to be turned off. Which is fine. I don't mind that, everybody wants to do things their own way. You want to do both sides, that's fine. But you can also get all of the. Hey. Yeah, see, now these sides are off. You can get all of that stuff in place and then change the stuff that's got to be unique on each side, right? So none of these shapes, the thing is, we don't want any of these shapes cut in half, right? So if we have a smooth curve right here on the side of the face, and then we're going to put like a divot or something in there, or like a, any kind of character, just don't break those shapes in half. It's pretty easy, right? Well, it's actually kind of hard because I feel like we do have a natural inclination kind of to do that, but it doesn't happen very cleanly like that in nature, right? So our eye is already kind of set to know, hey, when things break in half, that's not a natural occurrence. And so let me do this because I don't want to have to do this twice. So we're going to just come in here to geometry and say mirror and weld. And now we have the exact same thing on both sides as if we did it that way originally. This is a bit bulky looking right now. So we're going to beef up the sides of the head by just kind of pulling it out some. Same here. I'm getting too crazy with some of it. I can see some of these shapes starting to go like back out of whack. So I will get back into that in just a second here. Let me just kind of like make some of this stuff cool. And then let's actually go ahead and line this guy up. And see where we are at. Boom, boom, boom. And so, kind of one thing that I do worry about. Here we go. That was looking weird. Is the amount of polygons going on here. And whether or not that stuff's in the right place anyway. So what I will do is, where's my history? Project, reference, scope, subtools. Cool. We'll do this another way. So in ZBrush, what you can do is you can save your history and your detail, and then you can project your detail from your history into your new model. But in this case, what we're going to do is we have dynamic solo on, so we can only see one model. So what we're going to do is use Z-remesher to get this down to the lowest number of polygons possible. So what we have here is this red mesh. Oh, here's our history right here. And what that does, or that shows us kind of like what we're dealing with here. And I'm sure we can look somewhere and tell how many polygons we have right now. It's not that important. You can just assume you probably always have too many. You want a lot of polygons for high detail, and you want no polygons for high movement, right? So depending on how you want this thing to move. So what we're going to do here is we're going to Z remesh this, and it's going to give us a progress. It gives us this little progress bar here, and it's now shrunk this down to like no polygons, right? So if we look at this with the other model on top of it, we can see kind of where things are. And, you know, long story short, this model is way tighter. But we can go here and say we want to project all. And that's going to move this mesh more into alignment with the previous mesh. Now if we come down here and we say we want to divide that, we have 4 times the polygons, and we can still come over here to project and project all. And each time that's going to warp our mesh slightly more into shape. If we do that one more time, and then we project all, we're now very close to this original we had, but the mesh is much, much, much cleaner. So now we can get rid of this one. We keep getting rid of these meshes, right? And that will mess us up because you can do a lot of things with your history, and as you're getting rid of these, it's getting rid of your history. It saves the history per tool, not per project. So that is something to watch out for. But now we can get rid of this line, and you know that is gone on both sides, and we can pull this out much easier and kind of smooth out this little, like, however crazy it got right here, right? Boom. And then this guy, I want him to be deep, but I don't want it to be deep on the sides, right? So what we're going to do is shrink this brush, and with little taps just kind of pull it out and give it a little bit of shape. Cool. And then again, we can kind of just adjust this so that these areas are a little bit more crisp as we go into them again. We can push this in and pull this out. We can shrink this down and grow it. Let's actually not do that as crazy as all that. Cool. Now, what I do need is this needs to go away, because it'll mess me up later if I do, if I say want to have a skull with no teeth, and it doesn't look like there's no teeth because there's a giant bottom jaw right there. So we just want to carve out those cavities so that we have kind of a natural look, right? It doesn't have to be as crazy as on the inside. I do like to move this guy slightly down and this slightly up in the back. Cool. So now we have a fairly well-shaped skull. Probably not the cleanest one that you guys can find, but pretty good. Pretty good, pretty good. And same thing, right? We do now the same thing with the bottom jaw. Where we are gonna, let's look at what it looks like if we do this with the bottom jaw. So if we bring the bottom jaw out there and back there, and we kind of shrink it down here, but we know we like this shape, right? The shape is good. We're not worried about the shape. We like the shape. So we're gonna come in here and push this in. All the way around, so it's basically in the right spot. Bring this out so it's just a little bit wider. Maybe flatten it out so it's just a little bit flatter, and we can kind of see what some of these effects are that we're about to have, right? Boom. Cool. Boom. Bam. Cool. Let's move this because this looks either too weak or too strong, depending on the bottom jaw. I don't think is set up to have teeth smaller than the jaw itself, right? So some of this stuff you got to just pay attention to as like, hey, duh, your teeth are definitely smaller than your jaw. Maybe make the jaw bigger. But what we're going to do now is we're going to look in our history, and we're going to hit this button, and that's going to set our history. And now over here, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do the Z remesher. And now you see we've got generally the same shape in very nice square grid. We have this done. We're going to project our history, and that's going to kind of warp it all back into place. We're going to divide, come back, project history, and it's pretty much there in just a much cleaner form, right? And then we can start to do the same thing with the teeth, where we just, hey, which one is it? Cool. And then all we got to do is we are going to project the history. We are going to, actually we're not. We're going to use a smaller brush to get rid of just some of this stuff. Some of these lines and frames, not frames, seams. I don't know why I said frames. Okay, so now we have our history set. We're going to Z remesh this. That's going to give us these clean grids. We are going to come back. There's something, let's see if I can fix this here. Hold on. So it got rid of our poly groups, and I like the poly groups. So we're going to go down to keep creases, freeze groups, use poly paint. Okay. So now we Z remesh. And we could go in there and get the groups back. That's pretty easy, but if we can just do it all right here, why? Remeshing error, detect edges, use poly paint. Extract. Geometry, jaw. Mesh integrity. Fix mesh. Let's do this one. Now we want a Z remesh. We do want to freeze the groups. We don't need to adapt. We don't need to keep the creases. Z remesh. It does not like freezing my groups. Well, that's okay. So we have this new set. We're going to come into here. We're going to project the history. So this is basically the same shapes. We're going to divide, project the history. Divide again. Divide. Project the history. And you can see that it gets slightly more detailed every time. So now what we do is we come back into tool, or back over here into tools, and we say polygroups, auto groups, and that'll give us all our different groups. And then we can use this move topological to move these into place. And then what we're going to do is when we Boolean all this, these teeth are going to kind of show through. We're going to want them to cut into the skin here, right? Or the shapes here. Cool. You don't want too much of a gap between the teeth because that's not natural, but you want enough of a gap that you have something to show, because we know that there's not a line between the teeth. So kind of just like as you're thinking of the tattoo process all the way through, think about the things that you would be looking for in your own reference images, right? So anything that's like, hey, I would maybe not want this in my reference image, don't sculpt it in. You don't have to put it in just because it's in there. Just because it's in the image does not mean that you have to put it in the final, right? And so that's very important. We're going to now go to H polish and do the same thing where we turn this down, turn this up and turn this down, and we just make a bunch of flat parts for the lighting to kind of glint off of when we get to that part later here in a bit. Same thing down here. We're going to save our history, Z remesh, auto groups, move topological, and then we just start warping this stuff into place, right? I don't think that, let's see. No, we want that. We want this. We just want project history. Okay, now still move topological. And this stuff is probably not super important right here, right? So who really gives a shit about the inside of the teeth when you're doing a tattoo? The thing is, you know, if we're going to use this for years to come and we want to be able to do things like remove one tooth at a time, then you kind of have to like have it set up all the way around. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be perfect on the first time, but everything that I'm going to teach about in 3D or with computers at all, what I tend to find is that the more time you spend on the setup for any one thing, the more that pays later. The more, I mean, it's just going to pay dividends to like know that later all of this stuff is already in the right place. You don't have to do anything to it. You can subdivide it. You can get in close and do your flat areas. Oh, I don't want it that flat. Boom. Boom. Cool. And then what you can do here also is if you click these two buttons and you just were to show one of these, then you can you could then just do the faceting on that one tooth at a time, right? So click outside of there to bring them all back. Click the next one you want with both of them selected. Oh, and then just slowly but surely do that with all of them. Dynamic solo, and now we're going to come back to brushes, trim, lasso. Okay. Control Shift, multiple subdivision levels. Okay. Let's save the history. Let's Z-remesh. Let's retry. Let's Z-remesh again. Z-remesh again. Z-remesh again. One more time. Now we hit divide, divide. Project history. There we go. Now we say subtool, polygroups, auto groups. Cool. And then we can just hit shift and get rid of these little NURBs on the end or whatever. Cool. And then along this side. Cool. Turn off dynamic solo. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to move this all slightly out so that they're just angled slightly differently. Cool. Right? And now what I want to do is I'm going to make a shape like this. So I'm going to add a sphere, right? And I am going to mask a little part of it right here at the end, right? And then I'm going to deselect it, use the gizmo, to move a little thing out of it. Right? And then we're going to shrink the whole thing down. And what we're doing here is I want to make some shapes, but I want to do it consistently. And so I'm going to shrink it down, and this shape is going to go into this shape this way. Right? And so what's going to happen here is I'm going to Boolean this shape out, and it's going to leave a divot, but it's also going to leave a deeper little pinhole, right? So we want this set in here kind of just like this. And then we're going to duplicate this. And it's going to go up here, but it's going to be bigger. Get sucked right in there. And then the same thing up here. Let's turn this guy on and see what we're looking for. So that's going to be basically right here. And I probably have that edge in the wrong spot. So let's just look at this. We only want the tip in there just a little bit. And then we are going to use our geometry palette to look at modifying the topology, mirroring and welding it. Now we have that on both sides. Now we're actually going to duplicate this. We don't really need to, but I'm going to. Shut up. And we're going to say we want cancel. Oh. That's going to be part of the bottom jaw. This is going to be a Boolean process subtraction. The jaw is going to start it. The bottom teeth we're going to duplicate. Those are going to go down here, and they're going to be we're going to send those to the bottom. And those are going to be, in the Boolean process, also a subtraction. But we do want to use the move tool. We're going to have to get rid of that first one. So you don't want to change anything after you've duplicated stuff. You want to get in there and make all the changes that you're going to need. Where's this plane? And then I think up here in that top one, it's kind of the same deal, right? We need it over this way, up there. Shrink this down, pull it out. Yeah, cool. Cool. So now we're going to just worry about the bottom one right now, right? So we're going to duplicate. We are going to drag it down. We are going to make this, since we're here already, a subtraction in the Boolean process. We are going to duplicate, mirror and weld that. Okay, again, so we're gonna delete this. We're gonna come here to the bottom teeth. We are going to, did I just mess that up? Did I just erase the whole thing? I just erased my whole bottom teeth, so I gotta do that whole process over. So be very careful, because you can do something like this and it will mess you up immensely right away. So I'm gonna go ahead and
procreate nomad tools I embrace. Painting on the wrong layer, heart sinks low. Gotta pick myself up, learn and grow. Self-marketing's a beast. Shouting to the void, insecurity's a shadow I've gotta avoid. Keep grounding, keep shining, never back down. Every stroke, every pose, wear my crown. Through the struggles, the fights and the learning pains, I'll rise, I'll fly, break these chains. Never not letting, always on the grind.
The mesh, that is just showing how we want it to look. So it has some shadows, I have some other photos and a couple of
praise the art of the game, showcasing my soul, putting out my name.
We go from there. And then so I'm going to show you guys a little bit more of this video, and then we will speed through the rest and break it up in parts. But it's passion that drives me, it fuels my nights. Insecurity whispers, are you enough? But I push through the noise, keep my head up.
Keep grinding, keep shining, never back down. Every stroke, every pose, wear my crown. Through the struggles, the fights and the learning pains, I'll rise, I'll fly, break these chains. Never not learning.
Okay, so what's happened here is I have gone and gotten that model back of my teeth. Or I haven't gotten it back, I've remade it. I did a screen recording. Hopefully I got it in there. And then now what we're going to start doing
Keep grinding, keep shining, never back down. Every stroke, every pose, wear my crown.
is, let's actually take this and mirror it across. And you see how there's that big gap there? We don't want that gap to be there. So we're going to use the gizmo. And we're going to unlock the gizmo, reset it, bring it so it's right over these teeth. Make these teeth the only thing we can see. And we want to bring the teeth just a little bit that way. go. And then we want to use this move topology.
A screen to the heart, my art will flow. In every pixel, my spirit will show. Keep pushing, keep dreaming, never let go. An artist's journey, a constant flow.
That's the majority of what we're doing. We're just moving this stuff into place. So let's start looking at what this looks like if we mirror and weld it. No subdivision level history. So let's go here. Delete the lower. And then this again is up in tool, geometry, mirror and weld. And then we see that this is a pretty decent application. So we're going to probably have to move this lower one over just a bit. That means just tab it over. Cool. And then we do the same thing here and we say mirror and weld. Wrong one. Tool, geometry, mirror and weld. Modify topology, mirror and weld. We've got it done, and that looks fine, right? We're doing all right. And now we're going to go ahead and go back into here, into tool, polygroups, auto groups. Then we do the same thing with the top one. Looks like we already have auto groups and they're mirrored, so that's kind of convenient. So that'll handle things in two separate ways. If you have it masked so you only can work in the poly group, it can disrupt your ability to do symmetrical operations, but we can change both of these so that one behaves like the other here if we need to. So let's actually go into this guy. And I want to crease this, but I want to make it tighter before I do. Now, I'm definitely not saying that you shouldn't make a cooler skull than what's on here. What I am saying is that you can make this skull and follow along one time and then turn that into whatever you want. You can use it 100 times. You can use a portion of it. You can cut it up. You just got to save it. And then before you use it, is that what I'm saying? Yeah. You're going to want to save it as a new file, and then you're good to go. So this area here is going to get cut out by this ball, right? And then these teeth are going to cut out this area. And then these teeth are going to get cut off by these teeth, right? So what we're going to do here is say we're going to need a few versions of the top teeth. So for right now, the top teeth we have to duplicate. One of them we're going to make subtractive to the skull. One of them we're going to turn off. The skull, we're going to make the group start. This guy, we're going to make subtractive. And it looks like we're going to move some of them out some. So let's go to move topology. What happens if I use this? Let me just say, oh shit, that's why I'm on the wrong layer. Top teeth, this. There we go. Now, and so what this will do is this will make these holes kind of like sort of organic, right? And I'll have something sort of different to work with on every side. And then you can see here on the bottom where the teeth are going to be removing those specific holes. Why are you not moving, guy? Come on, guy, be my friend. Control. There we go. I don't know how that got masked. But you can kind of see through there how it is affecting the shapes underneath. So what we can do here is just kind of like push this in and push this in, because we do want it affecting that shape, but we just don't want it to be like this weird circle thing that's so perfect, right? But we do want to affect this stuff over here. Well, can't really tell what's going on, but hopefully it's something cool. And then kind of the same down below, right? Where it's like, boom. And then what we're actually going to do, quiet as it's kept. Hey, wait a minute. Is it already boolean it out of there? I don't want to do that. Okay. So now let's actually go ahead and we're going to put take our copy of the bottom jaw, change the Boolean process to addition. We're going to move that all the way to the top. All the way to the top. Right? Then we have a set of top teeth and a set of weird spheres set to subtraction. Right? And now we need a set of bottom teeth that we're going to duplicate, and they're set to subtraction. And this other one is turned off. And then this set of the balls doesn't exist. Delete it. I deleted the wrong one. Okay. So I need to duplicate. That one's turned on. That one needs to be set to subtraction. No. I just want to move it. No, I don't want a Boolean process. Okay, here we go. And then the top teeth and the bottom teeth we're going to leave, and this other sphere we're going to dump. And then this sphere we're going to get back into, and we're going to move around a little bit now that we figured out we had two of them going. So sorry about the noises. You're all biomech guys, you can fucking get it, right? It's kind of the thing here, folks. If you haven't heard any of my other rants on it, it's just about continual output and exploration for the rest of your life, right? Like, you get to explore stuff. All you got to do is output it in a cool way that people can appreciate your ride, right? So now we have this Boolean process started. We're going to add the jaw to it. None of this geometry actually touches, so it should not, I don't think, yeah, I think it's okay. It should not go on each other. I need to get into this layer. This is not going to work. Get rid of this up here. and put it in down here. Cool. Cool. So we have the cranium, the jaw, the top teeth and bottom teeth, which we are removing. And let's go to this guy. And what we want ultimately, what happened here? Turn. So what we want is a full, like, the top and bottom skull with these little inversions made in them and the teeth holes, and then we'll bring that back in and open up the teeth over them, and we'll actually do the bottom teeth twice because, or maybe the top teeth twice, because one time we're going to remove from the bottom teeth so that they go up next to each other real nice, and they're not like, they're like regular teeth, right? So they kind of fit. So what we're going to do here is, why will it not let me pick a layer? Return, I don't want to project history. So it's not letting me out of this. I don't want to project. And that should be the end of the Boolean process. So let's make the Boolean mesh and see what happens. Cool. And then now we should be able to append this guy. And then if we get rid of all of these other guys, and of course their history, don't forget. And then we turn on these guys. Yeah. So we can get rid of all this shit. So delete. We don't want to delete that. We want to delete this. And we didn't even have to delete it. We could have just got rid of it. Or we could have just, like, kept it, you know. I wonder why it won't let me select any of the other meshes. So let me go through them this way. And then you see it made, like, a real nice, clean mesh. I don't know if that's, like, the lowest amount of polygons possible, but pretty damn close. And then now what we can do is say, save the history, Z-remesher options. We don't care to keep the groups. But we do want to keep creases. Is it maybe this next? No. Yeah, so let's see. We don't want to adapt. We want lowest number of polygons possible. We've already thrown away these other models, so now this is like literally really just what we have. So we don't want to do that. because it really messed up down here. So let's say we want to go into Z-remesher, and we're going to double that to, 13 Z-remesh. We could work with that. So now we come over here to our subtools, project, and this is in the tool palette, project history. We don't care about the poly paint data. Cool. And now we're gonna subdivide, and then we're going to project history again. No. They need a thing for always no ZBrush. Come on, guys. And then we're gonna subdivide again. And project history. No. And there we go, dude. There's like a much cleaner, more set up model you have. You can make it so it's not so lumpy, I guess. Let's get rid of these forehead lumps. I also want to do this because it's just good practice. The making auto groups, when it will select different bodies and keep them as their own group, is going to save you a lot of headache later, because it's like automatic masking, right? Like if you've ever used selections or automatic selections in Photoshop, or painted in layers in Procreate, this is really what that's all about, is being able to contain things to their specific areas. And they call those polygroups groups of polygons. So cool. I already have what I'm looking for. And this is cool. These buttons over here, these are the same. So spacebar gives you all of the brush options, and that's what these are also on the side. And let's see, we do have symmetry. Cool. We're just gonna pop this out. And then one of them just handles, like I said, how tight the brush is. One of them handles how soft the brush is, how large the brush is, that kind of thing. So this right now, we have an area that is like misshapen, right? We want this to kind of not be looking like that. It's important to get in and criticize yourself, folks. Make sure you make yourself work for it, right? So cool. This is a cool shape. Is that how it really looks? On my skull in the corner, that's kind of how it looks. It's a replica skull, so who knows? Oh, okay. So damn standard. Play build up damn standard. And damn standard will let us start like kind of carving into this, although it does need a few more subdivisions. So let's divide, project history. Hey, polygroup subtool, history. No. And we can actually pinch this too. Whoa, what's going on here? Forward. Shift. Do some wicked horns up there, but not yet, guy. Come on. What are you doing? Boom. Now we look at the pinch tool. And we're going to actually turn this way down. So you really want to go out of your way. I'm going to go out of my way to get as much of this symmetrical shit in as possible. As much of these, let's see, what are we doing here? Why is this not cool? Add. So we're looking for these like edges here. Just kind of crisp everything up. Get out of here. Get out of here. I wonder if anybody's seen The State. It used to be on MTV. It's like I think Kids in the Hall knockoff, I think. Not knockoff, but like that's where those guys went after. It was always a fun show. They had Muppet hunting season. It was pretty cool. And this guy that came to the party and was like, oh, I'm going to dip my balls in it. So that's what I'm here for, dipping my balls in things. Just kidding. I didn't say that. Don't tell YouTube. Hopefully I'll find some cool music to play for you guys. Bam, bam, bam. And then we do one down here where we kind of just like, we're going to follow the ridge because it helps to look like there's something going on beneath there, right? Like there's a root system and there's things going on. And then here, we're actually going to smooth this out a bit. Let's turn it down. Put a few little random edges on here that aren't really random, but they're not really like measured, right? Like the human body is not going to like measure this stuff out. So some of it needs to be completely perfect and symmetrical. Some of it needs to be unique, as every person is unique, right? So it's just something to kind of think about as we're doing this. Just not changing my brush size. Oh yeah, work. Well, we'll get more into this detail up here in just a minute when we get off of the symmetry. A couple of flat spots here in the head. Because I don't know, maybe that's how the mold maker made it. Buff it up a little bit. I still want to push a couple of parts so it looks more cranium-like, I guess you would say. And then we can split these, because these things are different poly groups now, we can split them also. But we can also firmly plant them inside, and we can make that jaw a little stronger, because we can use this topology move tool. Not that one, this one. Oh, that is that one. What do you know? And then this way you can give these bones a little bit of like S-curve, kind of like girth or shape, or however you wanna put it. Cool. Bam, dude, look at that. Cool, man. Look, we're done. So I would say that is like, you know, a pretty well done skull. I'm going to save this project. This project is going to be called Skull 1, right? And then we're going to save as Skull 1 detail. And this one we can get crazy and do let's actually take this. We're going to go down in detail, right? So we're down back to here where it's faceted, and we're going to use the smooth tool to kind of like smooth this area out, but we're also going to like cool it down so it's not that strong. Boom. Cool. So now as we go up, right, we should be able to get that out a little bit easier until we get up to the high detail. And then now we have Skull 1 detail. So this I immediately like don't like, right? And that's going to be clay buildup, make it small, make it powerful, and then just like sand down the sides, and we'll be okay. I know we just did a lot of work for that, but it'll all work out in the end. Right, and now we're gonna do dam standard, and that's still cutting. Oh, that is building out. So we're gonna build out with it, and then we switch it, and then now look at her go. and then we can move this stuff so that it fits a little bit better, right? Because this thing ends up pointing at your cheekbone, the muscle that comes up under your cheek here. Cool. So let's see if we have any. Let's go ahead and stop this video because I think that like it's at least fairly good for today. Now, if you guys want, we can talk about lighting. And so if we were to light this, um, ooh, it's not lighting up that ball. I wonder if it'll light up in here. What's BPR? How do we do BPR? Huh? Can we do BPR, huh? Render, bitch. I'm gonna render behind the menu. Are you fucking kidding me? Render. That's weird. Let's do this. Let's go. Let's not do that. Let's turn off all that. Let's get rid of this stuff and say, yeah, for right now, we're just going to go ahead and delete this one, delete this one, delete this one, delete that one. Bottom teeth. Cool. So what we can do is say we take both of these and we hide it, and then we say split. It won't let us split the hidden. But it will, because we're going to lose our subdivision history. But I bet we could clone it and then get rid of the head on this one. And I bet we can merge, transpose, boolean, align, distribute, project. We gotta be able to cut shit out, right? So delete or free subdivision levels. Oh, there's my BPR button, duh. So let's go back to palettes, tools, geometry, dynamic subdivision, the amount of subdivisions, divide free subdivision levels, and then we get rid of this and say split hidden. And this we delete. Hey, bit, delete. Cool. Now, what is this stuff? This is all stuff I don't want. And so what we're going to do is split the mask points. That's going to be this thing, and then we'll say delete. So now we go back into geometry, unfreeze our subdivision levels, and we're back to normal. And then here on this original mesh, what we do is we're going to have to do the same thing. We're going to have to freeze the subdivision levels, hide this part, split hidden. They're both the same, so we could have just done this without duplicating it. Get rid of one of them, it doesn't matter which. Delete. And I think in this case we just save those spare pieces. So we're going to go here. And here. And now all that is in a different in different subtools. And then the other thing that we can do now, remap those details, you little whore. Okay, is we are going to subtool, merge down. Okay. Merge down. Okay. And then so now the top teeth and the bottom teeth are together and everything is in its own poly group. Get out of here, palette. So you can see how everything has a different color. That's just turning on ghost mode so you can tell what you're working on depending on how you like to work. So let's see what's up with the lighting. So come back to light. This guy, intense, dude. Turn it on. Distance, same. BPR, no. So I'm looking for something with a lot of rim light because that's going to show me where like all the details are really. So I should have light coming from both sides, and that's not really what this looks like. So let's see. Now what we can do is fill object. There's something about the environment going on because if all of this stuff is, it's all matte cap gray, that's the issue. Okay, so let's go to bump viewer. There should be one that's like skin shade 4. Cool, so now we're gonna turn everything to gray, fill object. Now we're a lot closer. Let's see. Skin shade 4 standard. Now that these lights are out of control is what's going on, I bet. Yeah, the matte caps cannot reflect properly. So we want a little bit of ambient in both of them, and then we want a little bit of intensity in both of them, but not so much so that we like lose this shadow in the middle, right through here. And then we can change where this is going to be by actively just like caring about what we're doing. You know what I mean? So we're going to end up telling a story here. So we're not really committing to anything at this point. We're just kind of like trying to look at it from a couple of different views. And I'm wondering why this still doesn't look like it's lighting up. The background. No, nothing. Okay, so now this looks pretty cool, but that's not how it's rendering. Let's go down to the bottom. Still object. Skin shade 4. Fill object. So cool thing now is we can take this, unlock it, set it at the base of the skull here, make sure that it's squared up, lock it back down, and then I wonder what's up with that. I have stuff masked. That's what's going on here. Haha. I know the culprit. Cool. Now what happens if we so now we have our little laughing skull that we can turn around and let's make this gray a little like darker. Yeah, here we go. So motherfucker. So the trick here, yeah, is this: getting everything looking the same, right? And then now, of course, gotten everything off center, which is not what we want. So let's go ahead and put that back. No. All right. Well, I'm gonna have to center them up again, but that's okay. So I don't want to do that. That's for sure. So go back. Cool. And then we can unlock this, put it back in the center, lock it down again. And then I actually want to turn this one off. And I want to kind of come in here, and I was going to like do the teeth together, but I think right now I'm just going to polish the tops of them. And we were going to come back in and liven this up later. I just want to look at how thin some of these are back here. I just want to flatten it out right on top. Same there, and then now we can do topological. Hey. And then we can go through and kind of like thicken these up if that's what we want to do. And this is kind of set up for you to not have like a super itty bitty brush. Sometimes I've noticed they kind of like stop working if you go too small. But if you make that point on your brush where it focuses very small, it tends to like that, as opposed to just like making the whole brush tip very small, if that makes sense. So consider that. And then same thing here, right? Is like we know that our teeth are kind of shaped uniquely per mouth. But we know how everything is shaped in there, right? And we're not selling this. I mean, I don't know who you are, but we're not going to sell this to a dentist, I don't think. This is just kind of a study to like get on board with Procreate and know like, hey man, look, I did a skull in here. I use skulls all the time. I can now use my skull, and then I can detail it out. And it's still always going to be my skull. So let's see what's in the render properties. Render. Details, smooth normals. Ambient occlusion. We don't want a flat shadow. We don't want a wax preview. We're not going to posterize it. Pure shadow. Oh, we can change how many rays, the angle of the rays, the resolution, the blur, ambient occlusion, preview shadows, preview ambient occlusion, render. Render. I don't know what these shapes are over here on the side. This is a shit render. So, all right. So at already over 3 hours in, I started to kind of like stumble around as I was playing with the lights here, and it's handling light a little bit separately than or the materials a little bit differently than how I was used to. But I worked it out. I thought this was a good place to split it into 2 videos. So I'm gonna just go ahead and play this a little bit so you guys can kind of like see what I'm working through with the lights, and then give you a little spin around, and then next week we'll get deeper into the lighting and texturing of this. So here's our the final design, and I hope you guys are into it and catch me again. I'll talk to you soon. Please don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe so I can give you more.